For those of you who are new to the bad news, I'd like to explain why it's called that. When Jesus first started his ministry, when he first started spreading his good news of his kingdom, not everybody supported him. In fact, some people even had him killed, which means that they didn't think it was good news for them. Now, oftentimes, we think that we are like the people that Jesus was saving, but in fact, more often than not, we are like the people that crucified Jesus. We are not the people that Jesus came to save directly. Do you hear me? Because what Jesus came to do was to bring good news to the poor. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that for those who are not poor, is it good news to them? Jesus said that he came to bring good news to the captives because they will be released of their captivity. But all that is saying is that he is bringing bad news to those who are holding people captive. Jesus said, I bring good news to the oppressed because they will be set free. But that's just bad news to those who are oppressing others, to those who are the oppressors. Now, for most of us Christians living in America, especially in the 21st century, with all our luxury and all our privilege, how can we say we are poor? So poor that we need saving. How can we say we are being held captives, that we are being oppressed, so much so that someone has to come and rescue us from our suffering? I don't think so. I think that we are the ones that need to be helping Jesus save others. Isn't that how we follow him? By doing what he did. Does that make sense? Or am I just crazy? Because the good news cannot be good news for everybody. And I think the bad news here is that it probably isn't good news for you. Now, if you continue to listen to me and this bad news, I don't think you'll love Jesus as much, because he's asking way more than you ever thought he was. He's asking you to do way more than any pastor has ever asked you to do, because what we're taught today is to repeat the sinner's prayer. And if we do that, then we're good. That's all we really have to do. Everything else is just extra. Everything else is just icing on top. It's not necessary, but it's good if we do it. Now, let's think this thought process through. If you go up to someone who's actually suffering today, who is actually poor, is actually a captive, is actually being oppressed, and we don't help them with their needs, and we don't set them free, and we don't release them of their captivity, but all we do is convince them to repeat the sinner's prayer, because that's what spreading the gospel means today, right? If that's all we do, then what are they going to do? Well, we teach them, if you say this, then when you die, only when you die, you will go to heaven afterwards, where there will be no more suffering. So, they're suffering now. They repeat the prayer. What do they do next? Well, the obvious thing to do would be to commit suicide, to end their suffering now, so that they can go to paradise later. That is nothing. Jesus came to bring good news to us here on earth right now, not good news for when after we die. Jesus is trying to give us life before we die. He's trying to save us before death. We have to understand that if we're going to continue his legacy, if we're going to continue doing what he did, if we're going to claim that we follow him, we have to understand what he first did. How can we follow someone when we don't know in which direction they're going? That's fundamental. This has nothing to do with the afterlife. So if you're not poor, captive, or oppressed, then what are you? Well, then you are now a tool to help those who are poor, captives, and oppressed. That's how we follow Christ. That takes work. That takes self-sacrifice. That takes a level of caring that we have to drop our privilege and our comfort in order to fulfill. And most people do not want to do that. They love their privilege. They love their luxury and their comfort. That's why church nowadays are easy to come by, because all we have to do is sit there at church and listen to a sermon, and we fulfilled our duty for the week. We said the sinner's prayer. We were baptized. But what does that do for those who are suffering right now? That does absolutely nothing. This is more than just a public show. This takes way more than just religiosity, than just tradition, than just belief. This takes action. And anyone can do this, whether you believe in God or not, whether you believe Jesus actually existed or not. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next video. But for now, I want to leave you with that. All right? If you continue to listen to me, I'm going to ask tough questions, right? And you may not like the answers that I arrive to, or that we arrive to, but don't be scared. Right? This is necessary if you truly want to follow Christ, if you're serious about this. Yeah, that's about it. So, welcome to the bad news.